What's up guys, it's me Jeremy. Hearthstone has a lot of various keywords and mechanics, and some of them are hated while others are kinda loved. You know, a lot of you guys probably feel satisfied with the battlecry mechanic, for example, while a lot of people also probably tend to hate anything with the word charge on it, especially if it's Huffer or Leroy. Over the past couple of years, a lot of people have argued about what the best or, the most well-designed mechanic in Hearthstone is, but for a long time there wasn't really a clear winner, but of course this all changed when the Discover mechanic was released, and we don't really know pretty much anyone who dislikes the Discover mechanic, and it just added so much to Hearthstone as a game. So today we're going to be jumping in and talking about what makes Discover so awesome. And if you guys enjoyed the video, definitely hit that like button, and let's begin. So there are quite a few things that make Discover just a really strong mechanic in general as far as its design goes. Let's start by taking a little bit of a look about what the mechanic in general is. Discover essentially means that when you play a card with the keyword, in addition to what else the card might let you do, it of course lets you choose between 3 of something to put in your hand, make your hero power, or whatever else the card specifies. Essentially you get to choose between 3 of something, and that something is whatever the card happens to be. It could be things we've already seen, like putting cards in your hand, changing your hero power, but we could definitely see cards in the future that potentially even discover a death rattle effect, or maybe even a battle cry for themselves, or so many other awesome concepts. There's definitely a lot of unexplored design space as far as the Discover mechanic goes. But there are a lot of things that make Discover super awesome to play with. Something that's so cool about the Discover mechanic in general is that it's really probably one of, if not the actual only mechanic in Hearthstone that really adds a lot of complexity and skill to the game. And Discover essentially does that by allowing players to just have more decisions to make in a game. Imagine a game where you and your opponent only make one decision each. That game probably isn't super skill intensive. Now instead, imagine where you and your opponent make 1,000 decisions each. It's probably a lot easier to get an edge over your opponent in the second variation if you're the one making the decisions better, because there's just so many more of them. Now while Discover of course doesn't add 1,000 options to the game, it does give you a choice between 3 things every time you play a Discover card, and that means it gives you more chances to play better and get an edge over your opponent. It's really awesome to see Blizzard take initiative and add more skill-intense mechanics to the game after people were kind of complaining about Hearthstone being too RNG based, and hopefully we'll see more mechanics like Discover in the future, because it's definitely helped competitive Hearthstone tremendously. Things like Raven Idol that let you choose even more than 3 options are even more awesome, and a good player is going to get a huge edge over someone who's just not as good through cards like Raven Idol alone. Another thing that's really awesome about Discover is really just how much design space that the mechanic actually explores. It's not just limited to choosing between 3 minions or 3 spells or 3 hero powers. You can also add on these effects together, like stuff like Raven Idol that adds another level of complexity. You can specify subtypes, discover a mech, discover a beast, which adds more complexity on top of that, or potentially makes the effects a lot more specific and niche oriented. You can specify discovering a card of a certain mana cost, or potentially even a card that starts with a certain letter. There's all sorts of stuff you could do with the Discover mechanic, and there's definitely going to be some interesting stuff coming in the future for sure. And you could even take it further. You can staple those effects together in various ways to create even more options, like discover a card that starts with the letter A, or discover a spell that costs 5 mana. And while that's a little bit of a ridiculous example, that card would certainly be super skill testing. You'd have to evaluate how many cards start with A that could help you, or how many 5 mana cost spells that could help you, and then decide between the 2. But of course there's definitely more. Discover isn't limited to just putting cards in your hand or changing the hero power. And while this design space hasn't been explored in the actual game yet, there's been a lot of custom cards that have been created and just a lot of experimentation, and it's something that I probably would actually expect to come to the future in Hearthstone. We could easily have minions that just discover their own battle cries. Imagine a minion that has the battle cry, discover a battle cry, or the battle cry of discover a death rattle, or something like that. Or maybe you even discover the stats that you get on the creature or something like that, that or just some effect on it. You know, Discover is essentially choosing between things, so of course it could apply to pretty much anything. There's just so much room for all sorts of really cool stuff. You know, we could see cards that let you discover a new life total, put cards in your hand, discover a new hand, etc. And that's still not it. I mean, what if we had cards that maybe discovered a negative effect for your opponent, or even let you discover a hero power for them? Again, maybe this is a little bit pushing it since Blizzard tends to not really like those kind of effects, but at the end of the day, Discover is probably the most versatile mechanic in Hearthstone so far, and I'm definitely excited to see what it does in the future. And honestly, in general, Discover is just a really fun mechanic to play with because of the mix of the RNG elements mixed in with a lot of skill. You know, there's definitely cards that are more fun to play than others, but for example, people tend to really enjoy casting things like maybe Unstable Portal because the animation's really cool, and you just kind of can't wait to see what you get. You know, that RNG really adds in like a fun element to it, but at the same time, most RNG effects are very oppressive in terms of increasing the amount of skill in the game, whereas Discover does the complete opposite. It's pretty much one of, if not the actual only RNG effect that is also skill oriented. And because of the slight RNG elements, you know, Discover cards are just super fun to play with. You know, they give you a ton of options to choose from, which is great for the game, makes it a lot of fun, but you also get to see and play with cards that you might not normally get to play with in Standard, which is really awesome as well. You know, players just love casting Discover cards and just playing with them in general because discovering things is just really cool and it's also really fun. Anyway, that's just about going to wrap up our homage to Discover. You know, we love Discover, it's an awesome mechanic, and it's something that I definitely want to see be explored further in the future expansions of Hearthstone. So maybe Discover's not your favorite mechanic, maybe it is, definitely let us know in the comments section below. Either way, looks like that's going to be it from me. If you guys enjoyed the video, drop a like, subscribe if you want. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.